I just finished it.
Last time.
My name is Jerome Ferry. My cameraman is Alan Eggers. We're doing a video interview with Lorraine Mahoney, a early female employee at the Collins Radio Company. Lorraine, tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in Delaware County, Ryan,
And
in 1920.
1920. What was your parents' names?
Jerry and May Mahoney.
And what was the roots? Irish, I imagine.
Oh yes, they gave my grandparents, both sides, came from Ireland. County Cork, but I guess everybody came from County Cork.
Did you ever get back to Ireland?
No. The rest of my family went this summer.
What was your dad's occupation?
He was a farmer.
Did you have any? How big a farm did he have?
He had 160 acres.
Any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had 4 brothers and 3 sisters.
And where were you in the lineup?
I was the oldest.
How about your grandparents? Were they living? Do you remember?
Yes, both my grandparents were living and close by. Within a 5-mile radius, both of them were there.
Do you recall, when you think back now, about any particular Irish customs or the way they did things, or weddings, funerals, or anything?
I know we used to have house parties. In the wintertime, we'd have house parties and barn dances.
Did
all the kids and everybody went.
Did you ever get the occasion to go to a wake where they held them in the home?
Oh yes, yeah. They were all held in the home. Yeah, there wasn't any mortuaries really. They didn't have those big buildings then or whatever.
Did you remember them partying at the wakes?
Oh, you bet.
Having a good time?
You bet. And they sat up all night, so they had to do something, so they drank.
Drank and sang songs?
Oh, yeah.
You always hear of an Irish wake.
It was a good farewell.
How about grade school? Where'd you go to grade school?
I went all through 12 years at Ryan.
At Ryan? What was it?
Catholic school.
Catholic school. Was this kind of a Catholic Irish community,
yes,
Ryan?
Yes, it was, yeah.
What was the name of the school?
St. John's.
And did you, could you wear what you wanted to, or did they have uniforms? Or?
Oh no, you couldn't afford uniforms.
What'd you kids do in the wintertime on the farm?
Went sledding. The kids would come out from town, and we had a couple of pretty good-sized hills there not too far from us. And we'd walk that mile, carry those sleds, just so we could ride down that damn hill.
Time after time.
Oh yeah, they come out every on Sundays. And Mom would always have a little hot chocolate when we'd come in.
Did you have a place to ice skate?
No, we didn't have any ice skates, no.
Just sledding. How about, do you remember, I imagine you all slept upstairs in the farmhouse.
Oh yes, with the frost on the windows, you bet. And I think we never were really warm, I don't think, because I think it was because we had too many covers on us. Kind of shut off the circulation. Those, they made those quilts, those heavy quilts out of whatever. Wool, and they were so heavy. Just about. I think maybe that's what's wrong with my back now.
Did you have any heat upstairs in the house? No.
Later years we did, but not first we didn't. But then we had a heating stove upstairs later. But
in the early years, did you have just a stovepipe going up through the?
That was all we had, yeah.
Stood around the pipe and put your clothes on.
Hurry up and get dressed and get undressed. And, we had corn bags of shelled corn that we used to take to bed with us to put our feet, snuggle our feet down into. We'd bring that downstairs every morning, put it in a big dishpan in the oven. It'd stay in the oven all day, and then at night we'd bag up our corn and take off for upstairs. And then later, my dad bought some soapstones at a auction sale, and we used those instead of the corn. That was fancy when we got up there like that.
Do you remember what your folks put in the mattress? Was it straw or?
They didn't make the mattresses. We had mattresses that were already manufactured, but I don't know. I suppose they were straw. I think that was all there was then.
Well, a lot of the farm people back in the early years, when they would thrash, they would take that clean straw and stuff the mattresses with it on a yearly basis.
No, Mom never.
Or you must have been right uptown then.
Oh, I guess the worst part as that was concerned, but that was about it.
Do you remember any Christmases as a kid?
I sure do.
Was they a fun time at your house?
We'd go up to my grandma Mahoney's every Christmas Eve, and we always got fruit. She always had a sack, and we got oranges, and that was about the only time of the year we ever had oranges. Yeah, we'd get oranges and apples. And
could your folks afford to give you any presents?
we always had a little something. Not much, but we always had something.
How about
I can't ever remember having a bad Christmas.
midnight mass?
Oh, all the time we'd take the sled and horses and head out at 10:30 for midnight mass. We went to Prairie Burgs where we went to midnight mass.
How would you keep from freezing to death in the sled?
Oh, we had these horsehide blankets, and we'd take soapstones too, warm them up and put them in there. Of course, they'd be cold when we'd come out again, but we never, it was just what you do, and we just didn't know any better, you know.
I bet when you think back, though, that brings back a lot of fond memories of going to midnight mass.
You know, really it was. Yeah.
I've been in the summertime. Did you have a creek to swim in, fish in?
We had a creek. We couldn't, it wasn't deep enough that we swam in it, but we fished. Little minnows. But my mom, she'd fry those so hard for us.
You'd catch a whole mess of small minis.
Yep. The neighbor girl had come down from up on the north side of us there. There was a couple of them that were the same age as my sister and I. And we'd stand down there and fish with a common pin all afternoon. She was here not too long ago, and she said, God, remember when your mom used to clean those little bitty fish and we'd eat them? She said, God, they were so good. But she said, just think of that. She said, nobody bothered to do that today for a bunch of kids, you know. But no, she'd clean those and fry them hard, and we really thought we had a treat.
Did she have a big garden?
Oh, always. Oh, yes. And then you canned all summer.
Was it mandatory that everybody worked in the garden when the peas come on and the beans come on and the corn come on?
We were out there. Oh, yeah. And then you get out there and harvest all that stuff. And
did you find yourself, did your dad use you as a farm hand because you was the oldest girl?
No, us girls we never worked outside. My mom, she loved to work outside, and she milked and everything. And then as the boys got older, they helped out there. But no, us girls never had to work.
Did you ever get involved with the thrashing, or?
Oh yeah, we loved that. Get together with the other neighbor kids, you know, and get all that good food. Oh yeah.
Did you ever help your dad shock oats?
Oh yes.
In the evenings?
Yep, we did.
How about haying time?
Yeah, we had to drive on the hay fork. And I remember my mom used to make us wear my dad's shirts. She said, you'll look just like Indians by the time summer's over. You know, get that shirt on you there, you know. We have to wear those so we wouldn't get tan.
Yeah. They didn't think that was healthy for you.
Oh, you just weren't supposed to do that. No.
And you didn't know how far.
I think it was because women weren't supposed to get tan.
But the boys, it was all right for them.
Yeah, they never had to wear anything special. But us girls, we always had to wear these long sleeve shirts and hot. Oh my God, driving on that, and we wore straw hats or sunbonnets. Mom used to make us sunbonnets, and we had to wear those when we were out there in the sun.
Did you ever get involved in helping them do the haying, putting the hay in the barn?
Not actually, no. No. Us girls never had to do that.
Was your dad a fun type guy, or was he very serious?
No, he really wasn't. He was more serious.
You suppose he was worried about so many kids to feed in
well, I would think
farming and.
It should have been. That was a lot of us.
I can imagine when you think back now, you cherished your Irish heritage.
Oh yeah, yep. Well, we still do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't miss a St. Patty's Day.
How about the family? Would they go to town on Saturday nights?
Occasionally, and they'd have. They always showed a movie uptown on Saturday night. Get that old reel out, you know, and run it there for everybody out. And we'd get a nice cream cone.
And your folks would do the shopping?
Grocery shopping, yeah.
Do you ever recall your dad taking cream to town, or eggs?
Oh, yeah.
Your mother taking eggs? And
well, they'd come in there and pick them up. They'd come and pick up the eggs and pick up the cream every day. But oh yeah, well That was what the groceries money came for.
Your
you
mother
Yeah.
used that as grocery
Yep.
money? Yeah. So what year did you graduate from high school?
1939.
Yeah. Was you bused to school, or did you
No,
Dad
we,
have to take you then?
we had a small apartment in Ryan, us girls did. And, well, my brothers, they started out and went to Buck Creek, which wasn't too far from where we lived. That wasn't, but us girls went to Catholic school all the time.
Buck Creek, that is no longer,
No, huh? It's no longer.
Yeah. the building is still there, but I don't think the,
Yeah, that building is still there, yeah.
was you into sports in high school?
No, we didn't have sports in the Catholic school, we didn't. We didn't have baseball or none of that stuff, so.
Did your brothers all go through what was the name of the
They-
school, did you say?
St. John's.
St. John's, did your
Yeah.
brothers go to
They
St. John's too?
graduated from there, yeah.
Mhm.
After they graduated from 8th grade at Buck Creek, then they came to Ryan and finished up there.
Did that ever bother them that there wasn't any sports, or were they expected to work on the
No,
farm?
you didn't know there was supposed to be any sports. You didn't even know about it, you know. You got together with the neighbors and did your baseball and whatever on Sunday afternoons.
Mhm.
You never thought about it being in school because there just wasn't any.
Yeah. How did your dad keep the boys out of trouble? Did he have quite a few cows to milk, or?
No, we never had all that many,
Yeah.
but there just wasn't any money to get into trouble.
Yeah. Did they all have chores to do?
Oh, yeah.
Hogs and the.
Yep, we had hogs. We raised hogs and sheep and cows, milk cows.
Were any of you active in 4-H?
I was, yeah. Baked bread at the county fair one time. It was so funny. Me and the neighbor girl were going to do this, put on this bread show. Well, so I stayed with her the night before, and we had to get up and like it started at midnight, so we'd have one loaf ready to go in the oven, and then we'd make another loaf a couple hours later, you know, show all the stages. And we got up there and set everything up on the stage, and we were short one loaf. Well, we'd memorized our speeches, and so we could just go right through it, you know. Well, then we didn't know how to get that loaf out of there, you know, to do our demonstration without that loaf in there. So anyhow, our leader, she said, well, she'd put us through it. So we went through the whole thing, leaving out that one loaf of bread. So we get up there, Manchester at the county fair, and doing our demonstration and all. And we were just going nicely, and my dad came, slipped that other loaf of bread in on the stage. Somebody found it after we'd left home and called him. He was thrashing. Said he'd have to take that loaf of bread up to, well, he slid that, and this just threw us then. So we'd rehearsed it, leaving that out. Well, then here's the loaf of bread, and we didn't know how to get that back in there again, and it was sheer disaster, believe me. It was,
Was your mother a good cook?
oh, terrific, yes.
Do you remember any
And
dishes of your grandmother's, the Irish dishes they used to cook, or?
You know, my grandmother used to make a cat, just what she called it. And nobody ever had the recipe, but it was a pastry, and then she wrapped apples in there. And then she put it inside of a piece of cloth. She wrapped that, and then she boiled it somehow on top of the stove. And God, that was so good, but nobody ever knew. Nobody ever had the recipe.
What did you call it?
She always called it a cat. We always said, "But what is this?" You know, and she'd always say it was a cat. And she'd roll it up in that cloth, and it kind of looked like she had a cat in there, you know. And she'd boil it. No, it was good stuff.
How many were in your graduating class?
9,
9?
yeah.
Are any of them living today?
Yes, there is. There's 3, and there 2 of them. The other 2 girls are still up around Ryan. One lives in Ryan, one lives on a farm just outside of there.
When you were in high school or about ready to graduate from high school, did you have any ambitions? What did you think you wanted to do, or what did a young farm girl do with her life? Were there any options as what you could do?
No, all you knew if a neighbor lady needed help, you went and helped did housework. And when I graduated, I went up to got this job at Manchester, doing housework on a dairy farm, where you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and have breakfast ready when all the guys come in from milking, and work your tail off all day.
What'd you get an hour? or
I
by
got
a week, or
$3 a week. Yeah.
$3 a week?
So then when I came down here and got $16 that first week, God, I didn't know what I was going to do with all of it. I took out $5 for my rent and board, and I still had $10 left. God, I'm getting another check next Friday. You know, what am I going to do with all this?
So,
I bought 2 pair of shoes. That's the first time I ever had 2 pair of shoes at one time.
how long did you stay at this,
I was there for about...
for the farm, at the farm then?
I think I was there about 6 months, and then my uncle died out in Montana, and my aunt was out there alone, and he had been clerk of the court, and they asked her to finish out his term.
Yeah.
So they sent me out there to be with her so she wouldn't be out there alone. So then I went out there and got a job in the post office. That was $54 a month.
Did you ever think of, think back and thought of your option, maybe if you stayed there, you could have retired from government
Oh,
job?
you bet I thought about it. I'd have a decent retirement.
That was a good job at that
Oh,
time.
you bet.
And then, so when you finally did come back from Montana,
Then I came back, and I came down here. I was going to go to business school. And I came down, and the head of the college wasn't here that day. And,
what college would this have been?
Was it called Bayless Center?
Bayless Business College?
I think maybe that was the name of it. I don't know for sure. But anyhow, I was supposed to see somebody, and he wasn't here that day, be in tomorrow. And so I went back home on the bus, and on the bus then I sat with this woman from Ryan, and she said, I suppose you've been down putting in your application at Collins. And I said, what's that, you know? Of course, I hadn't even been to Cedar Rapids more than 3 times in my life. That was a big deal to come to Cedar Rapids. And I said, no. She said, well, you ought to. She said, God, they're paying 40 cents an hour. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good to me. And she said, but you got to get down there. She said, they're just starting to hire women, and jobs will be going fast. So I came back down the next day and went out and put my application in. And
You had mentioned the fact they just started hiring women. Didn't they have women working there prior to
just in the office.
the war?
No, not just the office. Yeah, they had Rose Hanson, and I think somebody else I recognized in there this morning. I was looking through those.
And so what was your seniority date? What date did you start then?
February 12th, 1942.
Lincoln's birthday. Was there any restrictions that can you remember?
I don't think
Like, did you have to be a certain age, or?
We had to be 21. Yep, we had to be 21. Well, then they used up everybody that was 21, so then they had to relax on it a little bit. And a lot of people, and you had to have graduated. You had to have a 12th grade diploma too then.
How about if you're left-handed, would they hire you?
Yep, they didn't write it first, not write it first, but it wasn't very, very long, and they did. I remember I was training this one girl, and she was first left-handed one I'd ever seen. And she bawled all day, every day, and she just couldn't get it. And finally Ray Stoner told me, he said, well, put a mirror up there in front of you while you're doing it, and let her watch in the mirror, and she did, and that's how she caught on then.
Really?
Yeah, he set that mirror up there, and I'd do it, and then she could catch on to it.
Was there any other races at that time? Was there
No.
Negroes or Spanish people or Hispanics?
No.
Who hired you?
Rose Hanson.
Rose Hanson?
Mm-hmm.
And she was in the personnel office? No.
Yeah, she was personnel. She was
Were you required?
Mr.
Pardon?
She was Mr. Collins' girlfriend.
Was that been
Old MH's girlfriend.
Merle Collins?
Was he named Merle?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Did you have to take any type of a test?
No. Nope, she just came and asked you a bunch of questions, about your life, and made sure that you had a 12th grade diploma. And then, like I told you the last time, she asked me for my birth certificate. Well, of course, I didn't have my birth certificate with me. So then she said, well, if you don't hear from me in 6 months, come back and renew your application. I know some of them that renewed it every 6 months, So anyhow, I went home, and I went up to Manchester the next day and got my birth certificate, and I came right back. And I wasn't familiar with Cedar Rapids. I didn't know how to get around or anything. But I ended up downtown there, and I asked somebody on the corner, you know, what bus you'd take to get out to Rockwell or Collins, and they told me that how far I could get on it and whatever, what street to get off on it. So I was scared anyhow, but I got on the bus and I sat with this man and I asked him if he could help me get off there, and he said, "Why are you going out there?" He said, they don't hire on Wednesdays. And I said, "Well, I've already been interviewed." And he said, "Well, why are you going out there now?" And I said, "Well, I didn't have my birth certificate." And he said, "Did she tell you to bring it back today?" And I said, "Well, no." She said if I didn't hear from her in 6 months, he said, "Well, I'll tell you what." He said, "I'm going out there." And he said, "You won't be able to get by the guard." But he said, when the guard comes out there, he said, "You tell him you've been interviewed." And Rose Hanson said, "Bring your birth certificate today." So that's how I got in. And I was scared while I was waiting for that guard to go get her. He said, "Well, I'll call Rose, you know, and check." So she came out and she asked me my name, and she went back and got my references. And I had seen her write very good on the application there. She went and got it and looked over the birth certificate and hired me. So if I hadn't run into that guy, and he worked in the machine shop, I wouldn't have
Started to months
cheated
later.
my way in.
So you started with 40 cents an hour.
40 cents, yeah.
40 cents, and of course there was no training, and you probably had a leader, a group leader that kind of
We had some guys
taught you what to do.
taught us how to solder, and then they kind of led us through everything we were doing.
You had mentioned the fact that you were downtown. How did you get from Ryan?
On the bus.
On the bus to downtown Cedar Rapids?
Yep.
And did you have job codes then when you started?
No,
You
No,
just
there wasn't any.
hired to do something.
just assembly, yeah.
Do you remember? They allow you to take breaks when you first started?
Oh yeah, they gave us a break. In fact, in the morning break, they served coffee and donuts for free. Every morning we had that.
How many women were there when you first
There was
started?
10, and then I started with the second 10.
Lunch hour? Did you have a
Yeah, we had a
half an hour
we
at lunch?
brought- Yeah, we had a half hour. We brought our own bag lunch.
When you first started, maybe the cafeteria wasn't there.
No,
then.
there wasn't any cafeteria.
But later on, when they got a cafeteria, did you ever utilize it? Did you
Oh,
go to
yes.
the cafeteria?
You bet I did.
They have good food
Cafeteria.
there?
We thought it was good, yeah.
That was run
Then-
by,
Well, Sorensen later, but I don't know. I don't really know who it was that. It was just a bunch of Rockwell people, you know, that they hired to run it, and then this Sorensen came in.
you said your starting date was in February of '42, so that was 3 months after the start of the war in Pearl Harbor.
Or just started, yeah.
And at that time, had they geared up to?
No, they weren't up to. They didn't have enough people.
So they probably didn't ask you to work overtime right away.
Not right then. Oh no. We had a lot of people there before we were asked to work overtime. Then, when we'd work all night, I remember sometimes they'd come out and ask us if we could work all night. We were making radios for PT boats, and they say they really need these radios, you know. And Arthur and John Dayhoff would go up to Rob's and make sandwiches for us and bring them down.
Where was Rob's?
It was that little, it's a little instrument place right there by where Collins started, you know, up there on First Avenue. And there's,
29th Street,
yeah,
very
right at
close to
29th
29th.
Street, and there's this little building there. Now it's an instrument place. They sell instruments.
Music-
there. Just
musical
a little
instruments.
little bitty place, and it was an eating place. And I suppose because was right next door to Collins, and that's where. And so then when they moved down there, and he used to bring the donuts and coffee in the morning then.
But they did ask you to work overtime all night if you
Yeah,
you
they'd
would.
ask us if we could stay. We'd work all night, and we did.
So how long after you started did you start working overtime?
Oh my, it was. I'd be afraid to even.
Well, the reason
Yes.
I'm asking was when you started working overtime, you had to start getting some pretty good checks.
Oh, you bet.
And I can imagine a girl off the farm.
We started saving $5 a week in the credit union, and the credit union was just up the street in somebody's house.
They had a credit union at that
Yeah,
time,
we
did
did.
they?
We got it. Well, very shortly after that, we got the credit union, and this Harry Rogers had it in his home, and that carpet was just worn right down to the floor where you come in the door and go right to the desk there. Right, the path was just worn right down to nothing.
Did
And
they?
He worked out there.
Did they give you a loan, or would they loan people money if they
Well, I
wanted
guess we
it?
didn't have anything to need a loan for.
How about your living quarters? Where'd you live?
I lived with my aunt and uncle,
What was
I
their
gave-
names?
Sullivan, Con and Julie Sullivan, and I gave them $5 a week, and that was my room and board.
And where were they living?
They were on the southwest, northwest side at that time, on 2nd Street Northwest. And then I used to have to walk across that darn bridge in the winter. The bus left from downtown. Walk across that bridge is colder than all get out, you know, to catch that bus to get out to Rock. I rode the bus all the time. I've never had a car, so I rode the bus all the time I worked.
Did you?
42 years of it.
Was there a lot of Collins employees riding the bus?
Oh, yes.
Back
Yeah,
to
that
that.
bus was full.
Yeah.
During the war, you know, and there wasn't enough money for gas.
The gas
you know,
was
gas
rationed.
yeah.
When you first started there, did you remember a trailer court being right across the street from 32nd Street?
Now that you mention it, yeah.
Trailer houses?
Yes, I do remember. Small trailer houses over there.
Did you have a driver's license?
No,
Did you have
I
any?
didn't then, but I did after I came down here. Then I took driver training. Me and Lois Young went and took driver training.
Who was your first supervisor, remember?
Leonard Braun.
Did you think he was a nice guy to work
Yes,
for?
yeah, he was a nice guy. And he gave me that nickel raise, and then I really liked him.
You were getting 45 cents
Yeah,
an
I
hour.
was getting 45, and the rest of them were getting
Yeah.
40.
What could you wear for clothes? Anything you wanted to, or did they have
We had-
uniforms, or
We had our own blouses, and then we wore these sleeveless uniforms over them.
kind of a smock like?
And yeah, and they dry cleaned them for us. They sent them to the dry cleaners and kept them up for us for a long time until they got so many people, you know, they couldn't handle it. And then we had to do our own. But no.
Back that time, when there was no such a thing as dress code, there was no need for a dress code
No,
because
there wasn't
people
even-
dressed
nobody wore
properly.
slacks or
Yeah.
jeans. No jeans or slacks. No.
Did the guards wear guns back then?
Yes, they did. Sure did.
And would they check your lunch boxes and your purses when you went
Yep.
in? And
They didn't go through them too good. You open it up, and as you're walking
Yeah.
by, you know, and sometimes they'd catch a glimpse in there, and sometimes not. But
you remember how much your first paycheck was?
$16. You bet.
In that, in
That was
those,
a lot one time when you're used to getting 3.
and you would give $5 for your room and board, and that was your apartment and all your food,
that was-
and
that
you
was-
had
that was it,
$11
yeah.
left over.
Yep. Cost a nickel to ride the bus, so
Did your folks ever give you a little talk to try to save some of that money now that you got
No.
yourself a good job?
no. Mm-mm. But then the second year I gave myself a little talking to. I said, you better start saving some of this, you know. So then I saved $5 a week. And then in 3 years, after I worked there 3 years, then I was able to take a vacation, my $5.
Lorraine, I don't think I mentioned as to what plant we're talking about where you started. Was this the main plant at 32nd Street?
That's all there was, yeah. They had vacated the one on First Avenue.
So you never worked at the one
No, I never
on
worked on
First Avenue, yeah.
35th Street
Yeah.
was the first place I worked at.
And this is a picture of the
is
Irish
when I-
lass when she was.
When I started.
Lorraine, what was your clock number? You remember?
Clock number was 786.
Do you remember what equipment you was working on at that time? What they assigned you to?
When they first started naming it, was called TCS.
And did you know at that time or later Ted Hunter, who was the chief engineer on that project? Did you ever know the gentleman?
No. We didn't have much to do with the engineers. We didn't.
Later on, when you become more familiar, did you realize how important that equipment was that you were working on?
Oh yes, yeah. They made us realize, if these aren't built right, these boys, could just die from because they're not getting their codes through. And yeah, they did make us realize that.
And did all the employees really take that to heart?
I don't know if they did or not. I suppose some just took it with a grain of salt.
Uh,
'Cause we sure had a lot of repair.
do you have any idea that TCS, that units you were working on, how many of those radios they had built?
Oh no, I wouldn't.
When
I would have no idea how many.
35,000.
Is that right?
At the end of 1945, it was 35,000 radios.
I don't know what else they used them in, but they were used in PT boats.
Just about every Navy vessel there was.
I suppose, yeah.
This here, Lorraine, is a picture of the TCS.
That's right.
I think that is out of the Collins 50-year anniversary book, and that was at the celebration of the 35,000 unit.
There's a chart on the front of this, and we'd write notes on the back of that chart when we stick that in there. And some of us heard from some of the fellas that would go to record this on the chart. We had our name and address on the back there, and we've had notes. I had one notes from, and I was looking through some junk I had in there the other day, and I had a certificate, a Japanese certificate. I don't know if it's probably worth something now. That this one fellow had sent me.
This was a typical assembly line in
That's a
main
typical
plant.
assembly line.
This was the TCS line.
This was?
Hmm. I think the date of it is 1944 on it. Very nice.
I can remember one of the engineers telling me how Collins got started, that they were making crystals and small parts for radios and selling them that way in Arthur's basement. And they got too big for the basement, and Mr. Collins thought it was time that he got out on his own, so he rented this building, or part of this building, up on 1st Avenue and 35th Street. And when they all rode the streetcar to work, and when they got out to work that morning, Arthur forgot the keys. So Arlo Goodyear, he was an engineer at that time, and so they called him an engineer. And he stood on Arthur's shoulders and kicked the window in, and he said, and that was the beginning of Collins Radio. Sometimes we didn't have work out on the line there. Think we were out of parts or something, they'd send us in there to work with the engineers, and I always went to work with him when we went in there, and he used to tell me that stuff. So interesting.
During the war years, did they stress buying savings bonds?
Oh yes, oh yeah, you bet they did.
Did they have drives? Did they put on savings bonds drives, try to encourage people to?
They put on drives, but we were supposed to take so much out of our check each week to go into bonds. And then when we had enough for a bond, they'd mail it to us.
Mm-hmm. Did you get involved with ration stamps?
Oh yes.
Like why
Ration.
a single girl, she would be issued ration stamps for?
You know what? No, not necessarily. I don't know how I came by them. But I know I used to give somebody my sugar stamps, and then I'd get nylons for them, but I don't remember. And I remember standing in line down at Mays, downtown, for nylons.
Where did you get your stamps?
Did know what? This I can't.
Did they come in the mail?
That don't ring a bell at all.
Were nylons available to purchase if you had stamps?
Oh yeah. But you had to have the stamps, and that was the only way you could get them.
Mm-hmm. Let me throw some names to you early on. John Dayoff.
Oh yes.
He was the.
I don't know what title he had, but he was right. He was Arthur Collins' right-hand man.
He went back as far as his dad.
Him and Cruiser, J.P. Cruiser, were the two men that were Arthur's right-hand men.
Harry Berg?
Oh, yes, you bet. Harry worked in the crystal department. He was head of the crystal department. So he must have worked on First Avenue too, with Arthur.
Ray Stoner,
Ray Stoner, Harry Rogers. And,
Bill Popak.
oh, yes.
What was Bill later? Would he have been a foreman probably, or?
Oh, yeah, he was a foreman before he was made supervisor. But he started on First Avenue.
Charlie Packwood?
Oh, yes, I told you about Charlie.
Yeah, what was that story?
Oh, yeah. A bunch of us girls were going to go to a stage play down at the Iowa Theater Building. And everybody was from out of town. Nobody knew too much about where to meet or anything. Finally, somebody said, why don't we just meet on Kresge's Corner, which is right across the street. So that was good until when I came into work for, Monday morning, Charlie was clear across the room, and he screamed over there, hey, Mahoney, I saw you working Kresge's Corner Saturday. He says, why don't you try the bus depot? I could have killed him.
Herb Fauberg?
Oh, yes. You bet. Herb was my foreman and supervisor for a good many years. They always said Herb favored me. Wow, he favored me. I had the same job for 100 years.
Did you sense any discrimination against women when you first started
No.
there? There
I
was
never sensed any.
the men. It was kind of their domain for so many years. They didn't feel you were.
I think they were glad to see us. They'd come and hang. They'd build a cage around this, and finally, and then we were in this one caged-in part. And on breaks and everything, they'd come and stand on the outside of that cage and see if there was any new recruits.
Check them out.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the opportunity to meet Arthur or his dad?
Oh yes, they were very friendly. They were out there. They were out there on the line a lot. You bet they mingled right with us.
Then, shortly after you were there, probably a year after you were there, the union come on the scene. The IBEW.
It was at least a year, yeah. And a girl by the name of Alice Hammond was the one that pushed for that. I remember that distinctly because she worked not too far from me.
Do you remember a Bernie Rankin?
Oh yes,
He
was head of the union there.
the business agent.
One of the
yeah.
Johnny
Did-
Lyons.
yeah. Did they, when it first come on, of course you were a farm girl and unions probably didn't
No,
mean,
it didn't mean too much to me.
did they try to convince you that it'd be best if you joined the union, or did they leave it
Oh
strictly?
yeah,
up to
they
you?
tried to tell you this is, if you don't, we can make it tough for you. And I didn't join for a long time.
Yeah. So,
Scare me too bad.
when did you get your first advancement?
I think probably after about 6 months, I got a nickel raise.
Yeah. I mean, as far as job advancement.
Well, I don't really know when they actually. You just knew that you were like a leader. You were the one that were training them. You were the one that had the nickel raise. And
Well,
then
that's what I meant.
it was a long time
when
then
you'd
before
become when they made you a group leader, change your responsibilities.
that was just quite a few years later. They just said, you and you and you, do you want to be a group leader, you know? And that was
Okay.
all it was to it then.
Okay. Did you find yourself working a lot of Saturdays and Sundays during the war years?
Yes, we really did. Yep, a lot of them.
Holidays?
And we had to switch shifts. There was a week on and a week off, and you just get used to sleeping days, and you'd have to switch back, you know, and it was kind of mixed up.
Did they have first aid stations?
We
If
had
you
a-
cut yourself or
You
burned
know what,
yourself?
we had Bernice Rasmussen was available. If somebody got hurt, they just came out online and got her to. They reserved this room that they had a little iodine and stuff up in there, and she'd go in if you got boogered up. She'd go in there, and
And then later, did they?
later then they brought in a nurse.
You remember their names? That
I don't remember this one's name, but I know she went with Arnie Pyle. But I can't remember what her name was. I can see her, very pretty lady.
there was a
And then
Taylor. That ring a bell?
What's her first? You don't have a first name.
Catherine Taylor? No,
Oh,
I'm not sure.
That
I'm
won't
not
ring a bell at all.
I think later on there was a Cleela
Oh,
Dugan.
Cleela Dugan? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, and then
yeah.
she was there forever, you know.
Yeah. Was she in the military, Cleela?
Cleela, no.
No.
Kathleen Bromwell
Okay.
was the one that was in the military. And you go in there and say, I've got a sore throat, and she just light up like a Christmas tree and come with that swab about that long. And you got the same treatment the Army guys got. She was a good old gal, though. She really was, Kathleen.
She would have gauze wrapped around the end of a long stick,
I don't know what she had, but she'd go down there all the way.
and she would dip it in that purple ointment.
She loved it, you know. Yeah. She'd get you. I remember her slip was always hanging. It just was nothing too neat about Kathleen, and in the mornings there, she just barely make it. If she did make it, she was just before the bell, and we were down there at the old Cherry Building, and we'd look out that second floor building up there, and the tracks were right there. And here comes old Kathleen, just like a hunting dog over the tracks with her slip hanging, you know, trying to get there before the bell.
Was her dad a veterinarian?
You know, I don't know what he was. I think she was from Center Point.
The Collins column, the Collins newspaper.
I don't know when that started, but I've got some 43s.
Yeah, I'd seen that.
So
In
it
this,
wasn't-
when you first started, did they have time clocks, time cards that you'd punch in? That
Not that I remember.
how did they
There wouldn't
document?
be any time clocks. And I don't know, seems to me like we had to sign in every morning on something.
Okay,
But it just don't.
you were on your honor
Come
to
there.
sign in and sign
Yeah,
out,
mhm.
and probably same
As
way
close
with
as I can
overtime.
remember.
Mhm.
I think they documented our overtime for us. I think we did that.
Shortly after you started, they come out with the Collins column. This was the
Oh yes, and there were different ones assigned to out of each department to bring in the news for the month.
it's kind of like a small town newspaper.
There was some goodies in there. Believe me, there was. Dig up a little dirt even once in a while. It was a scandal.
Scandal sheet.
Scandal sheet.
Do you remember when Arthur's dad passed away? I think in 1943. Do you remember that occasion?
It was 43?
Mhm.
Gee, I thought he was around
Yeah.
longer than that. No, I don't remember the...
You
the
don't
occasion of
recall
the
him closing the company or
No, I don't
letting people
recall.
go to the funeral?
I don't remember that at all.
How about vacation? Could you earn a vacation so many hours for?
Yeah, you were entitled to a week a year. And I don't know if you really had to have so many hours in or what, but you got a week a year, I know.
So they didn't close down the plant.
No, well, yes, they did
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
And then later it was 2 weeks. They closed down for 2 weeks and everybody took it at one time.
Could you take vacation during the war?
Yes, you could, because it was during the war that I finally got enough money together to go out to Denver with a couple of the girls I was working with.
When the company would shut down for 2 weeks, didn't they have a contest to
It
who?
wasn't really a contest, but yeah, if you run into anybody that you worked with or from the plant, then they just wanted to see. I don't think you ever got anything for it, to see who came from the longest distance or who met up the longest distance away. And I ran into my superintendent out in Disneyland, and I had no idea he was out there, and he didn't know I was out there.
Who was it?
Herb Faber and his wife Kathy, and it was Evelyn Kim and I. And we sure, and she looked over, she said, well, God, that looks like Herb. And I said, well, there's only one Herb, you know. Did you know him?
No.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Your area, when you was building the TCS equipment, did you ever receive any awards?
Yes, we did. We had, you got an award for, well, we had pins, is what we had. And if you made, when you got so many built, it seems to be like it's what we got them for. And of course, after you were there like 25 years and 30 and whatever, then you got the pin with the little set in it.
Mhm.
This is my 40 year. They've got the 4 big diamonds you can see in there. And
Do you remember when Collins Radio was presented with the E Award by the
oh, I
government?
sure do. You bet. We had the big celebration. They had a little stand outside, build up a stand outside behind the building there on 32nd Street. And Arthur Collins got up on there and made a speech and told everybody how good they did and everything. And we got these little E-pins for outstanding.
Who did you, how long did you live with the Sullivan family?
I lived there, I think about 3 years was all, and then I moved in with the girl that I had worked with. That was Elsie Popek's sister. Her husband had died and she had 2 little children. And she was trying to buy this house. In fact, the house out there on 33rd Street, across the avenue, across First Avenue, just down there about 3 houses. And her husband had been electrocuted. He worked for the light company here. And I don't know why she didn't get any insurance, or there wasn't, that was way back when, you know, and anyhow, she just didn't have much money. But anyhow, she thought if she just had a house, you know, so she went out house shopping, and so then the guy, the realtor, asked her, you know, she said, well, she liked that house out there. So he asked her what she could put down for a down payment. And she said $80 was what she had. And they said they'd take it. And that's what she put down, was that $80. And then I was working with her at the time, and so then I moved in with her to help her get through it, and her mother moved in with her. And I still paid $5 for room and board, but I had to fix her mother's hair once a week. So.
How was the morale in the factory? Was it everybody in good spirits? Did they enjoy working there?
Always. Everybody was very friendly and in good spirits. It seems like all the time.
And when the union come in, was it still the same way that?
I didn't notice much change
didn't.
after the union came in. Huh?
Okay. Everybody was still happy with their jobs and with what they were
I kind of
doing.
remember when we got the first colored woman in there. It was kind of different, you know.
You remember her name?
Big Mary's all I can remember, but oh, she was so jovial. And in fact, they didn't shut the plant down, but you could go at the funeral if you wanted, and we all went. They said it was one of the biggest colored funerals that they'd ever had, but oh, everybody liked old Mary. They called
You don't
her
remember
Big
her
Mary.
last name?
She was so fun to work with. She just was. And she fit right in. I mean, everybody treated her good. There was no discrimination. Or is that?
Did you later become a regular group leader or utility, they would call it?
Yes, regular group leader.
What year would you become?
Gee, I just wouldn't attempt to say. It seemed like I always was one.
You were always showing somebody what to do.
Always,
right?
always.
Yeah.
And I was getting the same amount of money that the test repair girls were getting. They weren't having to go through all that, you know, and I just begged, you know.
Yeah.
Old Herb would say, no.
Can't afford it.
I need you where you are.
Well, what would have been your typical day's duty as a utility?
You had to keep parts, keep the bins, you know, we had these stack bins. You had to keep those bins filled up, and then there was new help coming in every day, and see that they got squared around. And
Did you end up training your new help?
oh yes, I trained everybody out there, I think. Lois Young, you remember her.
Mm-hmm.
She's got back problems. You know, Pat Kaufman that lived with her, she's in a nursing home. Has been for some time, you know. Just hard to believe.
How many would you have been responsible for? How many?
I imagine 15. A bunch each one of us.
And if they made an error, was that
Then
your
you had to
responsibility
you
to
had to
repair
repair
it?
it.
No matter how
And
busy you were, you
yep,
had to
you-
get that repaired.
That was one thing you had to keep pumping away at. Yep.
Did you ever have any girls that just had no business being on the assembly line?
You bet. Yep.
would they have any problem getting rid of them, or did they shuffle them someplace else?
Well, occasionally, yeah, they'd be shuffled, and they'd try them out doing something else, and then finally I remember a few of them that just could not grasp it at all. And,
Were any of these lines that you were on, were they set up for, you did a small portion of each job and it just kept moving down the line?
progressive, that's the way it was,
Progressive
yeah.
line? Mhm.
Yeah, nobody built the whole thing.
And if
We
one of
just
the,
were responsible for that little.
and if you had a girl that couldn't keep up or fell a little bit behind, it'd been your
You made it up,
responsibility
yeah.
to
Mhm.
help her to make it up.
Yep.
How about gossip? Was that rampant?
Oh, you bet, yep. Of course, we were all right off the farm, and I had never heard of divorce. I didn't even know what they were saying when they said divorce. And then when you seen these couples getting together off in corner here and a corner there, you begin to wonder, what's going on here? You'd know they were both married. Well, and pretty soon neither one of them were married.
And was there a lot of this, because throwing men and women together in a factory is not something that happened before?
I would think, possibly, yeah.
And a lot of the men being in service or being away, that, how
Yeah, a
about,
lot of those women, their husbands were in service, and they were still out there looking for a mate.
how about theft? Was there a lot of theft?
I only recall just one incident, and that was about that diamond ring I told you the last time. Mr. Cruiser just stood up on the steps there going up to the restroom and stood up there and called everybody together about 5 minutes before quitting time. And he said, in 5 minutes you're supposed to get out of here, but nobody's leaving here. There was a diamond ring left upstairs in the bathroom, and it's missing. And I want you girls to go up 3 at a time, go up those stairs and just kind of roam around up there and come back, and the next 3 go up. You're going to do that till that ring shows up there. It wasn't very long till that ring just got back there. And nobody ever knew who it was that left it back up there. But
Did they ever have matrons out there that,
yeah, we had matron in the restroom upstairs. Yeah.
it was their job just to watch the restroom and keep it clean and?
Yeah. Try to keep too many from going in one stall at a time. We didn't have too much of that then. There was just a couple. I think 2 pairs was all that I recall, and I couldn't get that at all. We'd never heard of that up there in the boonies where I came from. It was all new to me. It was my education, I'll tell you. Mingling with everybody. And
I can imagine you were born and raised on a farm.
Yeah.
And then come to the big city
big
and
city,
be
it
thrown
was
into a.
big, yeah.
Did you ever recall any blackouts? Especially on the night shifts, did they have to shut off all the lights, or were the windows painted black, or?
The windows weren't painted black. I do think they were painted. I think they were painted white. But I don't recall any blackouts that we ever had.
How about your social life? We'll get away from working
Oh,
here.
great time. Just one big family. We all went every Friday night, the whole bit.
After work, you mean?
Well, later, around 7 o'clock, we'd all head someplace where they were dancing and drinking. And
Like what were some of the places you had hit?
we blew in, and Top Hat. I can't remember that one.
Drayport?
Oh yes, you bet.
Dance land?
There was good Owen Dance Land always, Wednesday night. Well, you couldn't miss that.
Do you remember any name bands that used to play up there at Dance
Oh,
Land?
sure, you bet. Tiny Hill. All the name bands were up there. Les Brown,
How about the Sportsman's?
the Dorseys, Sportsman's, you bet.
Sportsman's Bar?
You bet that was just on our way to, and that was in the middle of everything. So
Right on
you could
First
always-
Avenue.
Didn't have any problem
Yeah,
stopping
yeah,
there.
Herb's Barbecue?
We'd stop there. Oh, Herb? Oh, yeah. You always said he had the biggest rats in anybody's kitchen in town. They sure had good ribs. We had, what the rats didn't get, we did.
The Cozy Inn?
Oh, yeah. Hang out at the Cozy Inn.
What was the favorite hangout?
I think a lot of us met at the Cozy. On
If you were
Friday-
going
on
to look
Friday
for
night.
somebody,
Go to the Cozy.
you went to the Cozy.
Yep. Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. Yeah.
If they weren't at the Cozy, they were probably out of town.
They weren't around.
Could you smoke on the line when you were working?
Not for a while. We had to go upstairs and smoke in the restrooms upstairs. And then finally there was too many people wasting too much time upstairs. You get up there and get visiting, you know. So then they finally said, well, hell, we might as well let them smoke on the line and keep them on the job anyhow. Then they let us.
Did you smoke when you were young?
Yep.
Did you smoke when you come to Collins Radio?
Yeah, I started when I worked in Montana. My aunt and I lived in town there, and there was her friends lived out at another little town just outside there, about 10 miles, and every Sunday they'd take us home with them after Mass. And she'd always fix a big meal about 1 o'clock, and afterwards, and she'd always say, we'll have just one cigarette. Well, I'd never smoked, and but every Sunday then I'd have one cigarette, and that one just went a little too far.
Yeah. Did your folks smoke
My dad did.
cigarettes?
Yeah, cigarettes. No, he smoked a pipe, my dad. I don't think I ever did see my dad smoke a cigarette. Pipe or cigars.
How about St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, I always took off.
Was that celebrated
That was always
in
celebrated.
that time period then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I took off. I always had St. Patrick's Day off. Or I'd work a half a day and take your half off. But no, I wouldn't. I'd never put in a full day out there.
And then what could you expect to happen on St. What would you hit the bars or?
Oh yeah.
Where would you start?
Well, I suppose Ted's Happy Time.
Ted's Happy Time.
And that was Mahoney, so that was Irish.
Was that a relative of yours?
No, he wasn't.
No.
Well, I always say no, but they had it came out in the Des Moines Register and the Cedar Rapids Gazette and Dubuque Telegraph Herald. If you spell your name this way or this way or this way, Mahoney, Manny, or Old Mahoney, you belong to the Klan, and there's going to be a Klan meeting. And it was at the monastery down by Dubuque that my grandfather helped build. And so there's where the Klan meeting was. And so my niece and I went down, and she said, on the way going down, she said, what do you think this is going to be like? And I said, I haven't got the faintest idea. She said, well, I think it's going to be like a tailgate party. She said, we'll get down there, and these people with all these kids will open up the back of the truck, and these kids will start jumping out. And that's about what it was. We got down there, and everybody always asked me, was I related to old Ted? And I'd always say no. First one I run into when I got down there was Ted.
What was some of the other places you would try to?
We did Cozy, and
Were you ever in the parade itself?
not when I worked there, but since then I've been in about every parade they've had. The Mahoneys always have a something or other in there.
Who were some of your close friends that you used to run with and chum with? And
Winnie Helm, Evelyn Kim, Irene Shebetka, well, she married a guard out there. Elsie Madison.
any guys that you remember that
Not
test
particular. We always
technicians?
went. Everybody just went.
Yeah.
Everybody was
Yeah.
just together. You know. Nobody.
Yeah, I had a good friend,
Very lovely.
Larry Goshi. He always talked highly of you. That
Oh, we had some good times. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can remember going out to the cabin. Yours was right next to his out there.
BJ Day when the war ended.
BJ, we got off. They announced that the war was over, and they'd call us when they wanted us to come back.
Was anybody aware that this could possibly going to happen, or was this just a total surprise?
You know, I just don't recall now. I don't recall if it just all came out of the blue, or we must have been aware that it was getting close. But I remember coming on the loudspeaker up there, and when we first started out there, they used to play records over the loudspeaker, and then it got to the point the machine shop was getting bigger and bigger, and they weren't getting any good out of the music. They couldn't hear the music up above so they bitched because we were getting music and they weren't. So then they had every kind of a record. If you wanted something played, you just take the record out and they'd play it. Well, that was short lived. They bitched about us. So.
And then, did you get laid off in 45 when?
We plant shut down.
Shut down for.
And they were shut down. I think I was off 2 weeks, and I was seniority list, so I was on number 1, so I was called back right now. And the rest of them got, some of them never did get called back, of course.
Do you remember the industrial balls that used to be held
I
here
sure
in
do.
Cedar
You
Rapids?
bet. Yeah. I remember the first time I voted for whoever, and Lois Young and Ross Moreland, and he was my boss at that time. We voted for them, and they were the king and queen of the ball. And
This is something that would take place once a year amongst all the
it was a
manufacturing
city, yeah,
companies,
it was
or
citywide,
citywide?
yeah.
And they would elect a,
Everybody had a king and a queen, and then they'd get down there, and then the night at the ball, then they'd elect the city king and queen. And I don't think I ever did go down to any of their. We all voted, but I don't remember. I don't recall ever going down.
how many different jobs did you hold at Collins?
Not too many, about 4, I think. I never got out of that group leading.
What did you hold besides group leader's job?
I was an inspector for a while, and then I went. Then when they started having different sections of like 248, separating them.
Job codes,
Then
different job codes.
Yeah, then I was 248 repair, and then a 203. That was as high as you could go, was the 203. And I'd been interviewed for procedure writer, but I just never thought it was anything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It just never.
Did you ever have the opportunity to be a foreman, or you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Turned that down too.
That wasn't your.
No, it wasn't my bag, huh?
Why?
I don't know. I just.
You felt you had enough responsibility the way
yeah,
it was?
I didn't think I could handle any more, and it wasn't anything I was interested in.
What was your favorite job? Your favorite equipment, or your favorite group of people, your favorite time period? And
It definitely was not the white room. I just felt like it was. I must have had a little claustrophobia.
what did they did they do in the white room?
It was secret work, and I don't know who it was for. We never knew too much about it, but you had to swear to secrecy. You know, you never tell anybody what you were working on, but it was just so confined, and you had to wear those white caps and gowns in there, and I just never cared for that. I guess really, as much as I bitched about the group leading, I guess I really enjoyed that the most.
You enjoyed people?
Yeah.
Did you later years you find yourself you had a lot of young boys underneath you?
Oh, yeah.
Just girls.
Yep.
When you came back to work after the war ended, you said you were called back 2 weeks later.
Yes, I was off.
What did they gear up to then? Do you remember? What did Collins
See,
manufacture?
they started going commercial, and but really, I can't remember what equipment it was that I worked on. Or
How many different buildings did you work in?
you know, the Cherry Building was the only one. Main plant and Cherry Building and Fab. 3 buildings that I worked at.
What floor did you work on down at the Cherry Building?
I was on the 2nd floor.
In all the years you worked out there, when you think back now, did you ever think about the change in people's the ethics, the work ethics of employees? When you first started, were they very industrious, or did they start getting a little lax in later years, or didn't you ever notice a difference in?
I don't think I ever noticed. Whether you ever paid any attention to whether or not they.
Where were you on the seniority list when you retired?
I was number 1 woman. There was a man, Mr. Carpenter, was ahead of me. And I tried to get him to retire the day before I did, but he wouldn't go.
So you could be number 1 on the
Yeah,
list.
so I'd be number 1 for a day. I said, hey, let me be the queen for the day.
This, Lorraine, was a plaque that was.
This hung up in the front part of the main plant. This is a list of all the service people that worked there.
When you first started working there, did you find yourself before too long that some of your friends was being called up, or?
Oh yes, yeah, they were called, But they maintained their seniority while they were in service.
Mhm.
They came back and fit right back in again.
Did you make any good friends with them and they never come back?
No, I never had anybody that didn't come back.
Lost their life
No.
in the war? This was taken what year?
1977,
This was your 35th?
35th.
35th. Did they have a big party for you?
Oh, yes. Yes, we did.
So what year did you finally retire in then, Lorraine?
I retired in 1983, December. And we had a big party. Sirloin and brew.
Do you ever get together with any of your old friends from
Oh, yes.
Collins Radio?
Yes, and once a year we have the old timers, those that worked there during the war. And this year we still had 15 there. So it's still quite, and it's always been up to me to contact everybody. This year I said, this is my last year, so they said they'd remember, so we'll see. It's usually the second Monday of August always.
Mm-hmm.
And we we go to Bishop's, and they said, no, they still wanted to have it, so.
A few years ago, down at the old History Center, they had a large Collins display down there. Did you ever get to see that?
Yes, I was invited to the grand, a few of us were invited before they opened it up to the public, and we had cheese and wine, I remember that, and Mrs. Arthur came back from Texas for that. She was there at that time. I think she since died.
Yes, she did. 98. She passed away. Mary Collins, his second wife. Yeah. How about your family, Lorraine? Is any of them still, your brothers and sisters, still living?
I still have a sister and a brother living. One's in Chicago and one's in Des Moines.
The Mahoneys that had the place in Elburnett,
Yeah, they still have it.
is that a relation of yours?
That's my brother.
That was your brother?
And he's dead, but my sister-in-law still owns it.
Mhm.
You've
Lauren?
been out there for the chicken?
Not for quite some time.
It's still good.
Yeah.
And they really have a crowd out there every night now.
Lorraine, unless you have any other memories you would like to share with us, the Cedar Rapids History Center, the Linn County Historical Society would like to thank you very much for sharing your memories with us.
Well, I've enjoyed this, and be interesting to see how it works out.